Captain Elias Thorne had always believed he could handle anything the galaxy threw at him. He had faced pirate attacks near the Belt, navigated asteroid storms thicker than clouds, and survived toxic gas eruptions on distant planets. But nothing had prepared him for the cold of Planet 9. The moment he stepped out of his shuttle, a wind like 1,000 knives tore at his body, biting through even the thick thermal suit. The storm roared, deafening and relentless, and the endless expanse of white stretched in every direction. Elias stumbled, struggling to keep his footing, his breath turning to frost before he could even inhale fully. The research station loomed in the distance, a cluster of metal and light barely visible through the blizzard. Each step toward it was a fight against gravity and the icy wind. He clutched the emergency pack to his chest, his fingers numb, nearly useless, as he tried to keep the shuttle's data cores safe. Losing them would mean disaster, not just for the mission, but for the lives depending on the research contained within. The freezing cold made his muscles ache with every movement, and he realized with grim clarity that he was human, frail, small, insignificant in the face of this planet's fury. Lightning flashed across the horizon, illuminating the jagged ice formations surrounding the station. Elias froze, squinting against the wind when he thought he saw movement. Shadows danced in the storm, but the blizzard was too strong to be sure. Another gust hit him, nearly knocking him off his feet. His mind screamed for warmth, shelter, and safety, yet the station seemed miles away, an eternity through the white hell. And then he saw her. At first he thought it was a trick of his exhausted eyes. A figure glowing faintly in the blizzard, her outline smooth and elegant, her form tall and otherworldly. She didn't stumble like him. She moved with ease, almost as if the storm parted for her. Her eyes shone through the storm like twin lanterns, and even through the blizzard, Elias felt a strange pull toward her, an instinct he couldn't explain. His rational mind warned him to be cautious. Aliens weren't supposed to rescue humans, but his body betrayed him. He was too cold, too tired, too desperate to resist. "You shouldn't be here alone," she said, her voice cutting through the wind like a warm current. Elias had never heard anything so soft and commanding at the same time. Every word seemed to settle in his chest, easing the panic clawing at his ribs. "Follow me," she said, stepping closer, her hand extended, glowing faintly with warmth. Elias hesitated. Human training screamed danger, told him aliens were unpredictable, potentially hostile. But his body was already failing, shivering violently, teeth chattering, vision blurring at the edges. The promise of warmth, even from someone he didn't understand, overrode caution. He took a tentative step forward. She led him through a narrow corridor of ice and metal, a path he wouldn't have noticed in the storm. The walls seemed to hum softly, resonating with a kind of energy that warmed him in ways the thermal suit couldn't. For the first time in hours, he felt his body stop shaking, if only slightly. "Who are you?" he asked, voice rough and broken from cold and exhaustion. "Lyra," she replied simply. "I've been waiting for you." Elias blinked, confused. Waiting for him. How could she know? He wanted to ask, but his mind was slow, dulled by the cold. All he knew was that she was a lifeline, a strange beacon in the white chaos of 9. He followed her without question, hopping against hope that this alien figure could guide him through the storm and save him from freezing in the endless cold. As they moved, Elias felt a strange combination of fear and trust. Fear for the unknown path, for the alien world that had already tested his limits. Trust, because in her presence, his freezing limbs relaxed, and he began to believe, just a little, that he might survive. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time since he landed, he felt the faintest spark of hope in the icy darkness. Lyra led Elias through the winding corridors of the research station. Each step echoed softly against the metal walls, a stark contrast to the violent storm outside. The heat from her presence brushed against him like a living shield, slowly seeping into his frozen limbs. Every breath he took felt lighter, the sharp bite of the cold retreating with every step. He wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions about who she was, why she was here, but words failed him. His human voice was hoarse from the wind, and exhaustion weighed down every syllable. Finally, they reached a room unlike any other in the station. The walls glowed faintly with a gentle, golden light, and the air hummed softly with warmth. The temperature was comforting, almost dreamlike, and Elias felt as if he had been lifted out of the storm itself. At the center was a bed, strange and soft, yet radiating heat that seemed almost alive. His body, shivering and broken from the cold, ached for it. "You must rest," Lyra said, her tone calm but urgent. Her glowing hand hovered near the bed as if guiding him. "You will freeze if you remain outside any longer. Get in." She didn't wait for his answer. She simply stood there, patient, radiating warmth, as though the storm could not touch her within this room. Elias hesitated. Humans were cautious by nature, especially around beings so different. But his body betrayed him, his muscles ached, teeth chattered uncontrollably, and the numbness in his fingers made even simple movements painful. He could barely lift himself, yet the warmth of the room, the promise of life, drew him forward. With a shiver, he lowered himself onto the bed. As soon as he lay down, Lyra moved closer. Her presence was overwhelming in its simplicity. No words, no judgment, only an intense, protective warmth. Elias felt as if every frozen cell in his body was being revived. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, voice trembling. He wanted to understand her motives, yet even asking felt fragile, like speaking over a storm. Lyra's eyes softened, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Because you fight," she said simply. "Even when the universe turns against you, you keep moving. Humans, they never give up." Her words settled in his chest, a balm to his soul. Elias felt tears sting the corners of his eyes. No one had ever looked at him this way before, not even his crew. In that moment, he wasn't just a human lost on a frozen planet. He was someone who mattered. The bed beneath him seemed to mold to his shape, radiating warmth that went deeper than skin. Elias felt his body relax for the first time in hours. The storm outside still raged, howling against the walls, but inside he was safe. He could hear the faint hum of the station, the soft rhythm of Lyra's presence, and for the first time he felt a fragile thread of hope stretch across the icy void. Lyra's hand brushed his arm gently, a gesture both foreign and intimate. "You need strength for what is coming," she said. Elias swallowed hard. What is coming?" he asked, though he feared the answer. She didn't reply immediately, only watched him with glowing eyes that seemed to see into every corner of his mind. The room hummed with her presence, and Elias realized something important. Survival wasn't just about courage or skill, it was about trust. About allowing someone else, even an alien, to share your burden. Minutes passed in silence, the storm outside relentless but distant in this cocoon of warmth. Elias' shivering slowed, replaced by a deep exhaustion that pressed against his eyelids. For the first time since stepping onto 9, he felt he might live. Not because he was strong, not because he was human, but because someone believed in him. Someone he didn't fully understand, yet whose presence made the impossible feel possible. Finally, Lyra moved to stand by the bed, her glow soft and constant. "Rest now," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Tomorrow we face the storm together." Elias nodded, too weary to speak, yet his heart swelled with gratitude. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for now, the warmth beside him, the gentle hum of life in the room, and the quiet presence of Lyra were enough to keep the cold at bay. In the heart of the alien station, Elias Thorne realized that survival wasn't just about enduring the storm. It was about connection, warmth, and trust, even in the most unexpected forms. And for the first time, he allowed himself to believe he might not face the storm alone. The storm outside raged on, but inside the glowing warmth of Lyra's room, Elias felt a calm he had not known in years. He lay on the bed, listening to the faint hum of the alien station, each vibration a gentle reassurance that he was alive. His muscles relaxed, yet a nervous energy lingered beneath the surface, a reminder that survival had not yet been won. He dared to glance at Lyra, noticing the way her light shimmered softly in the room, like stars dancing across the sky. "You're different," he said, voice still rough from the cold. I mean, humans aren't supposed to survive here without equipment for hours. And yet, his words trailed off, uncertain. He didn't know how to describe the strange bond he felt with her, this alien who had saved his life without a second thought. Lyra knelt beside him, her glow illuminating his frozen features. "Humans are strong," she said, voice gentle. "But strength is not just muscle or courage. It is the will to keep moving even when the world seems determined to stop you. I see that in you." Her hand hovered over his chest, not touching but close enough that warmth seeped into him like sunlight through ice. Elias felt a shiver, but this one was different, not cold. It was excitement, fear, and awe all mixed together. "I've faced storms before," he admitted, his eyes meeting hers. "Asteroids, pirates, even poison gas, but I've never felt so small, so alone until now." He swallowed hard. "You make me feel like maybe I'm not alone anymore." His words hung in the air, fragile yet sincere, and for a moment neither spoke. Only the storm outside and the hum of the room filled the silence. Lyra's eyes softened, and she lowered herself onto the edge of the bed. "You are not alone," she said quietly. "I am here, and I will not let you perish while I can prevent it." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of ages, of countless worlds and experiences Elias could not imagine. For the first time, he realized that survival was more than skill or luck. It was trust. The courage to rely on another being, even one so different, could mean the difference between life and death. Elias let himself relax into the warmth, the fear and exhaustion slowly melting from his body. His mind wandered, imagining how strange it was that an alien could care, could act with such empathy for a human. He had been trained to fight, to endure, to survive alone. Yet here was Lyra, showing him a form of strength he had never known, one that didn't come from weapons or strategy, but from presence, compassion, and trust. Minutes passed. The storm outside howled like a living beast, but Elias felt safe. Lyra shifted closer, her glowing hand brushing his arm gently, a gesture both foreign and comforting. "When we face the storm tomorrow," she said, her voice steady and calm, "you must trust me, and you must trust yourself. Together we can survive." Her words were not a command, but a promise, and Elias felt a deep warmth bloom in his chest. He looked up at her, his eyes reflecting gratitude and wonder. I trust you," he said softly. "I've never trusted anyone like this before." A faint smile touched her lips, and Elias realized that trust was not weakness. It was a form of courage just as bold as any battle he had fought. For hours they remained there, side by side, sharing the quiet warmth that the storm outside. Elias drifted between sleep and wakefulness, feeling the glow from Lyra like a shield around his body and heart. He thought about the battles yet to come, the blizzard, the icy wasteland, the mission to retrieve the data cores. But for the first time, he felt ready, not because he was stronger, but because he was not alone. As dawn approached, faint light cutting through the storm outside, Elias realized something profound. Survival was not merely enduring the cold, the danger, or the unknown. Survival was the courage to allow another being to stand beside you, to share the weight of the universe, and to remind you that even in the harshest worlds, hope could exist. Lyra's hand found his again, this time brushing his frozen fingers with deliberate care. Elias looked at her, a newfound determination in his eyes. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we survive, together." Lyra's glowing eyes seemed to nod in approval, and in that silent understanding, Elias felt something he had never felt before, a bond that could not be measured by species or worlds, only by trust, courage, and heart. The wind outside had grown furious. Through the station's reinforced windows, Elias could see snow swirling in violent gusts, whipping across the icy landscape like a living storm. He felt the bite of it in his bones, even from inside the protective walls. The storm had grown stronger than the reports predicted. Every second wasted inside could cost them dearly. Lyra stood near the window, her glow steady and calm against the chaos outside. "We must retrieve the data cores now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The storm will only worsen. If we wait, the station's perimeter will collapse, and there will be no safe path." Elias shivered at her words, but it wasn't just the cold that made his chest tighten. It was the gravity of the mission. The data cores contained information vital for humanity, discoveries that could save lives on worlds he had never seen. If they failed, countless beings would suffer. He nodded, his teeth chattering, trying to summon courage. "I'll follow you," he said, wrapping his arms around himself. Lyra's glow intensified slightly, bathing him in warmth. "You must stay close. Alone you will not survive, together we might." Her words were not just advice, they were a promise. Elias swallowed hard. He had survived countless battles, yet nothing had made him feel so vulnerable as the storm outside and the icy wasteland waiting for them. They prepared quickly. Elias donned his thermal suit as best he could, though his fingers still struggled with the fastenings. Lyra extended her hand, and he felt the heat radiating from her body, almost unnatural in its intensity. She touched his shoulder lightly. "Follow my lead," she said. "Trust in what we can do together." Elias nodded again, though his heart raced. The door to the outside world opened with a hiss, and a blast of frigid wind immediately assaulted them. Elias staggered, barely keeping his footing as snow lashed at his face. Lyra moved effortlessly, her glowing form cutting through the whiteout, guiding him with calm precision. "Keep moving," she urged. "Step where I step. Watch for unstable ice." Every step was a struggle. The icy ground shifted beneath them, threatening to swallow them into hidden crevices. Elias' lungs burned from the cold air, his fingers numb and stiff. Yet with every step he felt a strange determination rising within him. He had survived impossible odds before, but now he realized survival was more than willpower. It was courage paired with trust, a bond that gave him strength beyond human limits. Suddenly the ice beneath Elias cracked with a sharp, terrifying sound. His body lurched and he slid toward a fissure filled with freezing water. Panic surged through him, and for the first time he truly feared death. "Elias!" Lyra shouted, moving faster than human eyes could follow. Her hand shot out, gripping his arm with a strength and certainty that anchored him. He gasped, hanging over the fissure, staring into the abyss of ice and water. Her glow illuminated his face, steady and unwavering. "You are stronger than you believe," she said softly, her hand firm. "Trust in yourself, trust in me." He felt the warmth of her grip spread through him, and with a final effort she pulled him back onto solid ground. Breathless, trembling, Elias sank to his knees. The storm still raged, the icy gusts slamming against them, but he felt a fire ignite in his chest, a human fire strengthened by trust and courage. Lyra knelt beside him, her glow bathing him in warmth. "See," she said quietly, "you survived because you fight, because you never give up." Elias looked up at her, his heart pounding with gratitude and awe. She had not only saved him but shown him a truth he had never fully understood. Survival was never just about strength. It was about the courage to face fear, the will to move forward, and the willingness to trust those who chose to stand beside you, even when the storm seemed unbeatable. The data cores still awaited them, buried deeper in the station's outer modules, but Elias no longer felt alone. With Lyra by his side, guiding him, he realized that whatever the storm threw at him, he could endure it. Not as a human struggling alone, but as part of something larger, something powerful, something that transcended species. Together, they would survive. The storm had become a raging monster, howling like the cries of 1,000 lost souls. Snow lashed against the station's exterior, blinding Elias and threatening to throw him off balance with every step. The modules holding the data cores were only a few hundred meters away, yet each step felt like a battle against the very world itself. He fought to keep moving, his body trembling, muscles burning from cold and exhaustion. Lyra's glowing form moved beside him like a beacon. She seemed untouchable, slicing through the storm as if it had no power over her. Her hand reached out again and again, guiding him over jagged ice and through hidden crevices. "Stay close," she called, voice steady against the roar. Elias nodded, too exhausted to respond with words, but he followed her every step, trusting in her guidance completely. Suddenly, the ice beneath them shifted. A fissure opened wide, jagged and menacing. Elias' foot slipped and his body lurched forward uncontrollably. He felt the icy abyss yawn beneath him and panic surged. For a heartbeat, he thought this would be the end. Then Lyra was there, faster than he could comprehend. Her hand shot out, grabbing his arm and pulling him back with strength and precision that is understanding. He gasped, breathless and shaking, staring at her glowing eyes. "Do not fear," she said softly yet firmly. "I will not let you fall. You must trust yourself as well as me." The warmth from her glow flowed into him, seeping into his bones, fighting the cold and igniting courage deep inside him. They moved again, each step a perilous test. Snow piled high, shifting with every gust of wind, threatening to trap them. At one point, Elia's thermal suit ripped on a sharp edge of ice, leaving his arm exposed to the brutal cold. Pain shot through him, but he clenched his jaw and pressed on. He had faced danger before, but never like this. Never where survival demanded not just strength, but trust, teamwork, and belief in another being entirely unlike himself. Hours seemed to stretch like days. Every time he faltered, Lyra's hand steadied him. Every time he doubted, her calm presence reminded him why he must continue. Finally, they reached the outer module containing the data cores. The door was partially frozen shut, a thick layer of ice sealing it like a tomb. Elia's hands shook as he worked the controls, but the strength in Lyra's glow bolstered him. She moved closer, her warmth spreading over his trembling body, and together they forced the door open. Inside, the data cores sat in their storage racks, humming softly with energy. Elias exhaled a long, shaky breath, the relief almost overwhelming. Yet as he reached for the cores, the floor beneath him shifted violently. The storm outside had destabilized the module. Pieces of ice and metal threatened to collapse around them. "We need to leave now," Lyra shouted, her glow flaring brightly. Elias grabbed the cores, hoisting them with every ounce of strength left in him. As they moved toward the exit, Elias felt something extraordinary. Despite the freezing wind, the danger, and the physical exhaustion, a warmth spread through him, not from Lyra's glow alone, but from his own human determination. He realized with a surge of pride that humans were capable of remarkable courage. He was cold, battered, and trembling, yet he refused to give up. The storm might rage, but inside him, a fire burned stronger than any blizzard. Finally, they emerged from the module, the storm still fierce but their progress undeniable. Lyra's hand rested on his shoulder, steady and reassuring. Elias looked at her, his heart pounding. We did it," he said, voice raw but triumphant. She nodded, her glow softening. "Yes, together we endure, together we survive." For the first time on 9, Elias felt something more than survival. He felt the pride of overcoming impossible odds, the exhilaration of partnership, and the quiet, steady knowledge that even in the harshest worlds, humanity could shine. Not because of raw strength alone, but because humans could fight, trust, and persevere. Against storms, against fear, against the impossible. The storm outside began to wane, though its remnants still howled against the station's walls. Inside, the temperature slowly normalized, and Elias finally felt the full weight of exhaustion settle into his muscles. He sank to the floor of the outer module, the data cores secure in his arms, and allowed himself a long, shivering breath. For the first time in hours, he realized he was alive, not just surviving, but victorious against a storm that seemed intent on ending him. Lyra knelt beside him, her glowing form warm and steady. She didn't speak immediately. She simply watched him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and relief. Elias felt a strange rush of gratitude and awe. This alien had guided him, saved him, and yet had never asked for anything in return. We did it," he said finally, his voice ragged but filled with disbelief and triumph. Lyra's soft glow flickered, almost like a smile. "Yes," she said, "but not alone. You survived because you fought, because you refused to give in. Humans endure when others would surrender. That is why I trust you." Her words settled in his chest like sunlight melting ice. Elias thought about every perilous step, every near-fatal slip, every moment when the storm seemed unbeatable. And now he understood that his survival wasn't just a matter of luck or skill. It was his human spirit, tenacious, resilient, and unyielding, that had carried him through. Together they returned to the main station module, moving slowly through the corridors, Elias still clutching the data cores. Each step was lighter now, the tension easing from his muscles as he realized the worst was behind them. Outside, the storm had become a low roar, distant but still present, reminding him of the danger they had overcome. Lyra stayed close, her glow illuminating the corridors, guiding him safely. He felt protected, not because she was stronger, but because her presence reminded him of what he had already achieved. When they reached the central hub, Elias finally allowed himself to rest completely. The warmth of the station enveloped him, but it was Lyra's presence that truly soothed his body and mind. "You are stronger than you realize," she said quietly, sitting beside him. "Not just in body, but in spirit. That is what makes humans remarkable." Her words were simple, yet they carried a weight that resonated deep within him. Elias had fought wars, survived disasters, and faced death before, but never had he felt such acknowledgement, never from someone so alien and wise. He looked at her, eyes reflecting both exhaustion and admiration. I didn't think I could do it," he admitted, "but you made me believe I could." A faint glow of emotion shimmered in Lyra's form. "It was always in you," she replied. "I only reminded you." Her words felt like a revelation. Elias realized that survival was not merely enduring hardship, it was believing in oneself, often with guidance from others who could see the courage we fail to recognize in ourselves. For hours they sat in silence, the hum of the station the only sound. Elias reflected on the storm, the icy landscape, and the moments when he had thought he might fall forever into the cold abyss. Each fear, each step, each act of trust had led him here. He understood something profound. Humanity was remarkable not because humans were the strongest or fastest, but because they fought when all odds were against them, and because they could form bonds, even with beings who seemed completely different. Finally, Lyra's hand brushed against his arm, gentle and steady. "Rest now," she said softly. "Tomorrow is another day, but tonight you survived, and that is enough." Elias nodded, letting the warmth of the station and her presence seep into him completely. For the first time since arriving on 9, he felt truly at peace. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, amidst the humming warmth of the station, Elias Thorne realized that survival was more than enduring the elements. It was courage, trust, and the willingness to open one's heart to the unknown. And in that realization, a deep hope blossomed. No matter how cold or hostile the universe, humans could endure, could triumph, and could shine brightly, even in the darkest of storms. The storm had finally retreated, leaving the frozen world of 9 bathed in a pale, shimmering light. Snow sparkled like diamonds on jagged ice cliffs, and the twin suns reflected softly off the station's metal surfaces. Elias Thorne stood at the edge of the observation deck, watching the aftermath. His body ached from the ordeal, his muscles stiff and frozen from hours of fighting the elements. Yet, for the first time, exhaustion was accompanied by pride and relief. He had survived, against impossible odds. Lyra stood beside him, her glowing form calm and steady. The hum of her energy filled the quiet room, soothing him in a way that warmth alone never could. Elias realized how strange it was. He had been so terrified, so vulnerable, yet here he was alive because of his courage and the guidance of this alien being. For a human, moments like these were rare, but now he understood that true strength often came from trust and connection. "You made it," Lyra said softly, her glowing eyes watching him. Her presence radiated reassurance, a reminder that he had not been alone. Elias nodded, a faint smile on his lips, though his body still trembled from the cold. I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted, his voice low and sincere. "I've faced danger before, but never like this, and I've never felt such warmth." His words faltered, overwhelmed by the weight of everything he had endured. Lyra's glow shifted slightly, a soft light surrounding them both. "Humans endure because they fight," she said quietly. "But they also endure because they allow themselves to trust, to connect, to believe in something beyond their own strength. You are a rare example of that, Elias Thorne." Her words pressed into his heart, and he felt a surge of emotion he had never anticipated. Pride, gratitude, awe, all mingling in a fragile, shining thread that tethered him to this alien world, and the being who had guided him through its fury. They walked through the station together, securing the final systems and making sure the data cores were safe. Each module they passed bore the marks of the storm, yet Elias felt no fear. With Lyra at his side, even the harshest cold seemed bearable. She moved beside him effortlessly, guiding him, guarding him, her glow a constant reassurance that he was not alone. Finally, they reached the main entrance where his shuttle awaited. Elias hesitated, feeling an unexpected pang of sadness. Leaving this world, leaving her, felt harder than any battle he had faced. Lyra seemed to sense his thoughts. "You will return," she said softly, her glowing hand brushing his. "You carry more than data, you carry hope, and hope always finds its way." Her words were simple, but they resonated deeply within him. Elias took a deep breath, his frozen fingers brushing against hers. "I'll never forget this," he said. "I'll never forget you." Lyra's glow pulsed gently, as if acknowledging the sincerity of his words. "Nor I you," she replied. "Humans are fragile, yet they shine brighter than many stronger beings. Remember that." As he boarded the shuttle, Elias looked back one last time. The storm's scars still lingered on the ice, but the station stood intact, glowing softly against the frozen landscape. And there, standing in the pale light, was Lyra, radiant, unwavering, a symbol of what humanity could inspire even in the coldest, most alien worlds. He realized that survival was more than skill or courage alone. It was about connection, trust, and the willingness to face the impossible alongside someone who believed in you. The shuttle lifted off, the engines shaking against the icy surface. Elias pressed his forehead against the cold glass, watching the station shrink below him. For a fleeting moment, he felt the warmth of her presence still clinging to him, a gentle reminder that he had endured, that humanity had endured, and that even across stars and worlds, courage and hope could create bonds that no storm could destroy. As the shuttle pierced the atmosphere, Elias whispered to himself, a promise carried on the wind. "No matter the universe, I will fight. I will endure, and I will never forget the light that showed me the way." And somewhere on 9, Lyra watched the sky, her glow pulsing softly in the pale dawn, knowing that humans, fragile, tenacious, extraordinary, had a spark that no storm could ever extinguish.